right, so I'm Dean Tribble, he says. I'm CEO of Agoric. Many of you have heard of us. We are a layer 1 platform built using the Tendermint Cosmos SDK, primarily focused on orchestration, which I will tell you a lot about and how it enables building impossible things, where it solves, among other things, for chain abstraction, which is what a lot of what brought us here today. Now, if you haven't heard about chain abstraction, I'm not sure what you're doing here, but it was an idea that was actually started by our hosts Everclear when they had in their previous life, but we really got the ball rolling on it when Agoric, Near, Flashbots, and a few others launched the chain abstraction initiative, sort of jumped on the bandwagon and started carrying it forward for how to think about approaching the next generation of blockchain applications. And in particular, Agoric brought to the table the idea of orchestration, the idea of software that could coordinate the activities across many chains in order to accomplish end-to-end use cases on behalf of users. And that's now, obviously chain abstraction has grown in narrative strength, and orchestration has grown into a category within that of which there are now multiple parties orchestrating various kinds of activities across blockchains. Now, the backdrop of where this starts is we have this broad set of growing networks that are all connected, especially with layer 2s, with modular, they're all asynchronously connected, but you have to hand carry your assets from one chain to the next. And that's something that currently we inflict upon users. Chain abstraction has gotten, people have started getting some individual solutions where they're what I will call point solutions in the intense idea, where what the user wants to do is, I have tokens here, tokens on chain A, I want token Y on chain B, you figure it out, make it happen, right? Has anyone seen, Cross or Skip Go? Have people seen these applications to do this moving around of tokens? All right, raise your hand, we've got to make it interactive. All right, we've got a couple of people who've seen this. And there's a few of them that give you different kinds of power. And this is a big step forward. And the idea of doing swaps, the idea of doing solvers and intents is a growing, particular important chain abstraction use case, and it's really valuable. But for the people who flew here, how many of you, when you went to buy your plane ticket, did you move money from your bank account to the bank account of the airline? And did you worry about converting it into the local currency for your airline? So, Korean tokens if you were buying from Korean Air, or US dollars if you were buying from Delta. How many of you had to do that? Oh, thanks. Okay. You just give us your password, it'll all be fine. All right, there we go. And the answer is, of course, nobody does that, right? You swipe a credit card, you get a plane ticket. What people want is not just to move money, even though there's billions of dollars of that happening in crypto every day. That's what they do in order to accomplish something else. They want to move money and they want to do something with it. And right now, that's surprisingly difficult in blockchain systems to move money and then do something with it. You end up having to sign multiple transactions. And what's happening is, of course, all these money movement protocols are starting to add hooks to be able to do one thing with it. But, we'll talk about richer use cases where it's about being able to do something that is rich and complicated and takes time, that is what the user wants to do. And somewhere in the middle, there's a move and a swap that will take advantage of all the technology that people are building. Okay. So what are some of those use cases, right? Well, we've got that straightforward thing of the on-chain liquidity, the liquidity solvers, right? You hear about the acrosses, the solvers. Well, we would like to have on-chain solvers so you can have anonymous third-party participation in the liquidity provision, right? We would like to see in-place swaps of Bitcoin or in-place swaps of NFTs. So if you've got an NFT on, for example, Omniflix that is a ticketing infrastructure, and the NFT it represents rights to a ticket, you would like to be able to trade it there from on Base or Polygon or somewhere else with the assets you have on Ethereum and have it all just work. You would like to be able to spend some USDC or some IST on a chain in order to purchase Bitcoin that stays on the Bitcoin network, that didn't all have to be pulled into one atomic place so I can do it all in one atomic transaction. I want to be able to do commerce broadly across the world and broadly across services that exist in different ecosystems without having to munge them all together into one uniform and relatively dull environment, right? We've got all sorts of these things, right? You've got gaming infrastructures and games launching on Solanas and Sagas and Dimensions and everywhere else. You might want to be able to move assets back and forth. You've got the ticketing. I mentioned Omniflix, and there are people, ticketing is an $80 billion a year revenue industry, and we're barely scratching the surface of the ticketing industry, where we've got this fundamental, amazing ability to do digital assets for this $80 billion industry. And we barely even gotten started there, right? That's something where it's because we have all these obstacles that makes ticketing right now impossible to deploy because I am frenetically gesticulating things. No, because you've got all these assets spread all over, and frankly, users don't want to put up with that whole fractured environment and the fractured liquidity. And finally, we've got automated market makers and yield optimization. Okay, so these are the things that are impossible to build today, that we're just getting started, and chain abstraction is the idea that maybe we should do these, and orchestration is how we can do these, where we can provide rich end-to-end user experiences instead of giving users the requirement to build, to incrementally build up the thing they want to do by these individual low-level transactions. So I'm going to talk about how we accomplish that kind of thing, right? Now, a key to most of these use cases, and a key to the limits on current systems, is Solidity, CosmWasm, Solana. All of these are built where you write programs that start and end within one block, right? That start and end within 5 seconds. I like someone's analogy, da-da-da-da, da-da-da. Some things take longer than 5 seconds to get across. If I've got a use case where I'm searching for a plane ticket and I get a plane ticket at the end, right, that takes longer than a transaction. That takes longer than 5 seconds. And so the use cases we want, the things we need to deliver rich experiences that the actual mainstream audience will care about, is actions that take more than a block. And that's what orchestration, the Agoric platform, provides, is fundamentally an infrastructure where you can do actions that last the entire use case. So let's talk through what one of those is. So let's take one that's very Ethereum focused, right? We've rolled out, Tabasco was talking about a lot of this infrastructure hasn't shipped. Now we've rolled out the orchestration infrastructure for the interchain, and next year we go out for Ethereum and EVM and so forth. So I'm going to sketch a scenario of what the future world looks like, where you can orchestrate across all these ecosystems, because that's where we're all getting to next year. So I've got some USDC on Arbitrum. Actually, one of our early access partners has this, right? And the customers want to earn interest on Compound, deployed on Polygon, right? Do they care? No. They want to push the button and make this happen, and they want to take that interest and turn it into a brand new cold storage, hard ETH position, locked up off-chain, right? That's a thing that a lot of users turn out to want to do. So the way that's implemented is as a smart contract running on the Agoric chain that can reach out and have each of these different components do their thing in this asynchronous multi-chain environment, right? And this is using multiple different bridge protocols to move money, to send actions, but it's all under the safe control of a smart contract that implements the business logic that the user wanted. So how does that work? What does that look like, and why can we do this impossible thing? I love having code. I know most of you are probably not developers, but it's JavaScript. 20 million people understand this stuff. It's pretty easy to follow along. Let's just assume I'm going to do this transfer for $1,000, right? 1,000 USDC. So this is really where we get started with the logic, which is get me an object, get me a thing that shows me all the stuff I can do on the Polygon chain from orchestration. And I'm going to reach out from this smart contract and make an account, brand new account, nothing in it, on Polygon that I control on this chain. So the first miracle of the platform is that await there. I can wait for a response from that chain to go, okay, I've got an account for you. And the second miracle is that user account that comes back is the only object on the planet, on any chain, that can control and spend the assets and that brand new account. And that gives me such simple security, such simple safety, where I can just put things in there that I know are under control of this smart contract. And so let's go ahead and transfer to it that $1,000, which is now transferring over CCDP, which is Circle's protocol, over Everclear, over Aglair. You don't care. What you want is the money to get over there. The money gets over there. We wait for that. That's now happened. 3 chains have cooperated to make your dreams come true. And I pushed the wrong button. There we go. The money gets over there. I will find out what's the Compound thing. I'll tell Compound, hey, take this money and deposit it. Start earning interest on it. That's what the supply does on the Compound contract. And this is now done, right? Now, this is a thing that people do billions of dollars on an ongoing basis of slosh money from one chain to another and put it into Compound to earn yield. What they generally don't get to do is push one button, approve one thing, and make it happen, right? Well, let's make it a little more complicated, because I did that in order to get the yield and do something with it, right? So what I wanted to do is withdraw the excess, let's say a couple days later, withdraw the interest, right? Everything more than what I put in is the interest. Let me pull that out. You get the interest. And assuming that's, if it's 0, right, this is JavaScript, I can do control structures, I can do all sorts of things. If it's 0, I'm done, stop, I've finished, right? But if it's not, then go ahead and get the Uniswap contract, trade that for ETH, and transfer the ETH over to my ETH cold storage account over on Ethereum, on L1, right? And that'll just happen, right? I'm wait for that to happen. But this is all something where, this takes 7 days. I don't care. I just set this up to happen. It'll eventually get there. It'll, raise errors. I can follow it. I can track the progress, all those kinds of things, where I could have authorized this entire thing in one action. But, really, if I'm going to do this, I kind of want to do this every day, right? I'm not going to do this once, and I want to authorize doing it every day one time, right? One click. Currently impossible, that's the thing we want to enable. What does that look like? Well, it's basically the flow you just saw, right? Withdraw the excess, stop the zone. I don't need to say Uniswap. I don't need to say exactly how to do it. What I want to say is, do the transfer and swap thing, right? If it's CCDP to move it and buy it on the local chain, that's great. If it's buy it on this chain and transfer it with Aglair, that's great. If it's, move it with some other thing in an hour, tell Everclear to move it, whatever it is, you don't care. What you wanted was this business logic. And the nice thing is, as the market evolves, as the conditions evolve, as the prices evolve, the costs of capital evolve, the behavior for transfer and swap is advised by that. It's configured by that. It's something that each implementation can choose to prioritize in things. But you, from a business logic point of view, just do it. Just make it happen. And that's my flow. So set it up so that happens once a day. And every day it's going to do this again, and this strategy might be a little bit different every day to satisfy the user's desires here. I carefully avoid intent, because this is, explicitly, here's the business logic I want you to engage in, but this is what the right kind of API can do, and all of this will be able to run on-chain. So it's logic that I can build and then sell to you. I can put into a portfolio manager to automate that process. I can implement all those impossible use cases that I said before to enable people to build the impossible. So that's really what we're doing. The core functionality, that core thing that you cannot do anywhere else, is that multi-block execution, right? That's the magic that lets you directly approve as a user an end-to-end use case that spans time as well as chains and ecosystems. And so I can approve once a complicated flow, an ever-growing set of interesting complexity. I can incorporate into that timers. So, we've had timers in programming since the 70s. The fact that you can't use that on-chain is just a little bit ridiculous from the point of view of anyone who's built Web 2 apps. The fact that you can easily incorporate that in a very natural fashion is critical for the next generation of DeFi apps. It's critical for supporting the use cases that people care about. And then finally, of course, you can react to market conditions, you can react to prices changing, and just interact for real with the asynchronous economy and the asynchronous world that we're all embedded in. And so there's several projects that are already underway, for in terms of doing fast solvers and on-chain solvers, or having like a LP position or a perp market that can then build positions over on other ecosystems. All those kinds of things integrate Bitcoin. But really there's these general classes of things you want to be able to do, that people can do. One is these seamless cross-chain and cross-ecosystem workflows, where if you've got that, then being able to do multi-block actions is really valuable to do this stuff on-chain. We get this user retention model where, I don't know how people familiar with liquid staking. That's where, I bring ETH and I get ST ETH, or I bring Atom and I get ST Atom. I get an asset that is the liquid staked version of that, where I participated and locked up my underlying asset in order to be getting staking yield while having an asset I can go use somewhere. And the key thing is, I did all this in order to take this asset and go use it somewhere. And usually what happens is people then go to your liquid staked application, they engage in it, they're one of your customers, they then take your asset, and then you never hear from them again because they went off somewhere else in order to use that asset. You have lost the customer, right? And so being able to instead have orchestration where your system can be enhanced to incorporate that functionality so that the customer gets the liquid staked asset, and you say, and I can set it up in that vault over there in order for you to earn extra interest, or I can pay off your subscription, or I can enable whatever additional DeFi functionality you want. I can incorporate that into a singular offering here and thus keep the customer, while providing them improved economics, because the application gets improved economics, the customer gets improved economics, because now instead of just having one service, instead of just having, liquid staking, and now 3 days later when it's all set up, you figure out what the next step is, I can offer them a single use case that's going to do the liquid stake and then 3 days later put it into a position and 3 days later do some other thing for them. I can do that all at once and get a much richer experience. And so that finally results in new value creation. Right now, applications, smart contracts, they're valuable, there's a lot of money there, but it's really very simple. Smart contracts are generally a few thousand lines of code is a large one, which means we're still at the very beginning of the kinds of services and the kinds of value we can provide to customers. And so that will get richer and richer over time. And a lot of that richness, a lot of that value is created by taking two institutions, right? A perp DEX and a lending protocol, and combining them together to be able to deliver some richer financial instrument to the users that they can get one-click participation in. And that's what the future is going to look like starting next year, right? So that's out and working inside for all of the interchain connected accounts, I think, or blockchains. There's something like 95 of them that are all connected and interoperating in various ways. So there's a lot of activity out there, including extending out to these modular ecosystems like Celestia and Saga. And next year, we've already got the stuff in progress to bridge this all out so that same kind of functionality I was showing you, where you can say make account on Polygon or make account on Solana and have use cases that are moving assets automatically from Polygon or Base into Solana and onto Camino, right? All those kinds of use cases are enabled. So that's what 2025 looks like. Please figure out your next use case as being something that spans chains and ecosystems, and come join us and orchestrate that all. Okay.